Hey guys, I'm going to tell you guys about my 5-day unit. So I was in a sixth grade classroom, so in a middle school setting, but we did our 5-day unit over like a human impact and math standards. So throughout our 5-day unit, um, we designed a product that could be donated to a local animal shelter that was made out of old or worn out clothing. And so our real world scenario was that we were really focusing on how textile consumption or like the use of clothing and how it's donated to places like Goodwill or Potter's House. A lot of the clothing that ends up there can't actually be sold, and so around the US, people donate so much stuff to donation centers like Potter's House or Goodwill that the donation centers have way more than they could ever sell. And so my students really focused on what is a way that we can prevent some of those things, specifically clothing, from ever making it to the donation centers. So the standards that are discussed within this 5-day unit are 2 science standards, which are applying scientific principles to design a method for, it says monitoring, but we really focused on the minimizing of human impact on the environment, and then also constructing an argument supported by evidence for how increases in human population per capita consumption of natural resources impact the Earth's systems. So, in cities where there is more people, like how does that impact the textile consumption donation centers there? So, math, because this took place during my action research, it's going to be more statistics focused. So you could take it in other directions, more of a measurement base, but we really focused on the statistics end of it, because that's what my action research was in. And so we focused on the 4 statistics standards that the Arkansas standards, curriculum standards, there's academic standards, Arkansas academic standards lays out, which is everything from recognizing a statistical question, determining spread and shapes of data, recognizing mean, median, and mode, and then also being able to display your data in a graph. But then we also did some measurement when we were making our products. And then at the end, they create things using more of ELA standards. So those are the standards that we're going to discuss. Some big ideas. There's 2 main big ideas. I can use statistical knowledge to make informed decisions. And then also my choices have an impact on the world around me. So once again, we're going more statistical route, but you could take a more measurement route if you want to do. So I laid out my 5-day unit kind of based around the engineering design loop, but we're going to go more in depth on each of the stages rather than just briefly going over them in one project or in one day. So in the first day, the students will be presented with a problem. They're going to brainstorm. They're going to think of ways that they directly add to the problem. And then on the second day, they're going to research the human impact and look at statistics and statistical data that's released. And I've kind of picked some articles and things for them to use in their research that are focused, have a heavier math base in them. And then on day 3, they plan and sketch their ideas for making an impact. So coming up with those products that they are going to donate. And then day 4, they are going to build and make the dog toys or the dog products. We ended up going with a dog toy, but they could have made a dog mat or a cat mat. And then the last day is they are going to be calculating, sharing, and reflecting. So going into that first day, so students are going to design a product that can be donated to a local animal shelter. So that's going to be the end goal, and pretty much on this day, we are breaking it down to where students will complete a inventory of the things in their room. So think about the things that end up in a donation center. And they categorize the items into things that they sometimes use, they always use it, or they never use it. Because we all have those things in our room that we just never use. So I want students to become aware of that so that they understand that they are directly impacting that and they add to it. We all add to it, that problem. And so then they're going to take this room inventory and they're going to make a graph from it, and they're going to they can choose to make either a pie chart or they can make a bar graph of the different things to identify if there's someone who uses some more things sometimes or uses some things always or never, just so that they can have a visual to understand like the different things that they have or don't, things that they use and how much they use them. And then students will brainstorm ways that they can minimize the amount of things that they have in that never category. And so they're going to do that with peers, and I wasn't able to do it, but I would prefer them to have it on anchor charts and put them around the room so that we can refer back to them and really have that displayed and keep them thinking about those targets. And then we're going to present them with the STEM challenge at the end so that they know that that's what they're working for instead of just having them fixated on like the clothing end of it. But some materials that you might need is the Chromebook. I think the Chromebook's easy for them to use and easy for you to see it, but you could do it on paper. Having that paper, you're going to send home an email to parents at this time, and then discuss that with them so that they can also talk to their parents. It's just asking for those donations and everybody's in the loop on it. And then markers if you choose to do it on anchor chart paper, and having it really cute and hanging up around the room, making it colorful and fun. On day 2, you're going to do more research. So digging into that problem and why it's a problem and how we can fix the problem. So students will research about textile consumption and the way that it impacts the environment in local communities. Students will have a choice in listening to a podcast or reading an article. Both of those are very heavy math-based articles or podcasts, so they're able to have that differentiation of whichever they prefer, but also seeing that connection between science and math. Students will interpret the graphs and statistics presented in both articles, and this will be done through a gradual release model, where we discuss it and then they kind of do it on their own through an I do, you do, we do model. And then what they would need for this is just their Chromebook and headphones. On the next day, they're going to plan and sketch their ideas. So they're going to vote on a design that they believe will maximize the amount of quality products that we can produce out of our donations given. And they need to provide an assembly line for how to do that, so breaking it into jobs. Because a lot of the things that we ran into were a lot of people were wanting to do these cool dog braids, but only like 3 people in the class knew how to braid. So you gotta have jobs. And then beginning to build those products. So that's going to be done. The building's going to be done tomorrow, but they need to have in their mind that they are going to be voting on products so that they understand that their peers will be seeing these things. And this is just this can be done through paper and markers, but having that Chromebook and so that if they wanted to do it digitally and they can research on the internet. A lot of mine found videos on the internet and then wrote out responses or combined different ideas into things, but then just having that plan and that sketch ahead of time, so with exact measurements, was super important, because a lot of the plans did require measurements, so this is where you could really bring in that measurement piece. But, yeah. On day 4, so after researching yesterday, the kids will the kids are going to vote on the design that they think is best and is going to make the most products that are quality and durable and meeting the requirements of a dog toy if you go in that route, or a dog blanket. So like if it's a dog blanket, is it going to be something that they can lay on, or is it going to be ripped up into shreds? And then the next one is they're going to design a plan for the assembly line and then provide written. I think I switched those two. So this task should go on the last slide and vice versa. So what they're going to need for today is all those donations that you've been collecting all week. So we had lots of shirts and towels and all that jazz. And then scissors. And so that's really all you should need. You don't need needles and thread unless you want to go that route, but we just did scissors and donations. And then the students made an assembly line. So this was my student. These were my students. In this first line, we had a crew that was our cutting crew, and so they would cut up the old T-shirts into strips because our class does both actually chose to do braided dog toys. They were really excited about that. So they did these dog toys that were braided, and so we had one crew that was cutting, and then I didn't take a picture, but there was a crew that was stretching the fabric into long strips, and then we had a crew that was knotting it and then giving it to the braiders. These were my 3 braiders, and then we had a quality control and a knotter at the end, and then if there was like super skinny ones, then they were able to like rebraid them into a triple braid, which was really cool. So this was the assembly line, and so then it was really sweet. The animal shelter that we donated them to, I actually posted on Facebook, so I included that. But on day 5, after all the donations were given, or we took them to the donation center, or to the animal shelter, and then on day 5, they calculated the average amount of dog toys created per the donations. So we had, I can't remember how many T-shirts, but they calculated the pounds of T-shirts, and so we had a weight measurement, and then how many dog toys we ended up creating over like 120 dog toys. And so they were able to see that, okay, this little amount of donations was able to go super far, and if this was stretched to like if we took this to Potter's House or took this to Goodwill, the amount of things that they would be able to give back to the animal shelters would be tremendous. And they were able to scale those to numbers by creating a ratio, and then estimating along the way with that. And then after that, students reflected on the project about how their thinking changed, how they felt they did during the assembly line, if they were a good peer, and then they also were able to create a letter that was going to be shared in the pod newsletter to inform others about how they can make an impact too. So for this one, because our newsletter is digital, if you did it on paper, you could also do it on paper, but because ours was digital, this was all done on the Chromebook. But that was the end of our 5-day unit. So we just went in more depth on each of the stages of the engineering design loop and broke it into really in-depth work. So for the assessment, I graded them on 4 things. I wanted to assess them on their ability, on their understanding of human impact. So I demonstrated that I understand I make an impact on the environment around me. And then on more of the math base, I can interpret statistics and read articles to make informed decisions. So a lot of our statistics work came from things within along the way, and so being able to see them as a whole and how they did mathematically in their growth of their understanding of statistics, and then how students work collaboratively with team members was taken into account, and then how reflective they were on that self-reflection was taken into account. So, when thinking about the 7 essential project design elements, um, when thinking about challenging problems or questions, within the problem presented, students must think critically on how they will turn clothing items into durable and useful animal products. So, meeting all those requirements that we would want when buying an animal, like a dog toy, if I was going to go to the store and buy a dog toy for my dog. Just thinking about those things and thinking critically about them. And then through sustained inquiry, so a lot of the students were had challenges when thinking about the assembly line and thinking about how they were going to break something apart and thinking about like, okay, someone might not know how to braid, so I need to dedicate a job for that. Not everybody can do that. So that was something that even when they were working in the assembly line, communicating with peers and being able to persevere through that, um, and just the different challenges of thinking about how they themselves add to the negative impacts of the negative human impacts we have, was really cool. And then the authenticity, because this was going to a local animal shelter, they were so pumped um, to have be able to take this to some dogs and see, anytime that there's dogs involved and cats, they were super pumped, and so they were really excited to be able to do that. And we had so many donations just because they were super excited about the project. Student voice and choice. So students were able to choose which design they felt was going to be best, and students were really okay with their design not being chosen because they were able to see that, okay, like this is going to go to animals and I want the best design to go. And so if it's not mine, it's okay. Like there wasn't a whole lot of pouting or like, oh, which was awesome to like see them have that passion and like them push motivating their peers. So that kind of goes with critique and revision, but yeah. For reflection, they did a self reflection at the end and they were very honest with that. And then public product, they were able to share what they learned with the community and parents and the entire school. And it was really cool to even see the animal shelter in their post. They were like, oh, they're learning about human impact and this is a great way. And my students were able to share that with them. And so them being the teachers for the community was really, really encouraging. And so within this unit, some differentiation that I did was purposeful groupings. So we have some friends that can get really influenced by the peers. So putting them in purpose in a group where they're going to excel was really important, as well as like someone who might not have the loudest voice when they're next to someone who's got a more dominant personality. So just being very intentional with the groupings, giving students a variety of ways to express their knowledge. And then within this project, there's a lot of different ways that I could scale this based off of student needs. And I had that data, so I was able to see where they needed the extra instruction. And so for mine, it was statistics and probability. So that's why I went the statistics route, but you could totally go measurement if your students need measurement. And then students were able to vote on and lead an extension activity that went even deeper into statistics probability. And that is it. I think that's it. Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. This was my 5-day unit. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great summer.